Hello and welcome to Get Lit with FirstLight, a financial and bilingual show brought to you by FirstLight Federal Credit Union. I'm your host, Sidney Alvarez.
Y yo soy Paulette Murguia y juntos exploraremos tips y temas padrísimos de cómo organizar tus finanzas.
Absolutely, we'll be talking to the experts to help us get on the right path towards financial success.
Sale, ¿listos para empezar?
That's right, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Get Lit with FirstLight, brought to you by FirstLight Federal Credit Union. Our topic for today, are you financially compatible with the one you love? We have 5 signs that we're going to show if you and your partner will likely be able to merge your lives financially successfully. Our guest today is Aliana Apodaca. Thank you for joining us, a motivational speaker and worldwide leadership coach and owner of Positive Directions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us today is Maria De Jesus Ortiz, also known as MDJ. She does a lot of financial literacy presentations with FirstLight Federal Credit Union. So welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So ladies, let's talk about this, okay? Think about it. In a relationship, there are some characteristics or behaviors, right? Who spends more money? Who makes more money? Do you have arguments about money? Is your boyfriend cheap? Or flip it, does your girlfriend want you to spend more money? All right, it's all, and I've got to ask, is it important to be financially compatible? Aliana?
Absolutely. I think you have to be compatible in many areas, but how you're able to resolve your financial differences shows up in other areas of your relationship.
MDJ?
Definitely. I'm the spender, so he needs to be the saver.
And see, it's opposite. I like to save, and my husband likes to spend.
He likes to spend. There you go.
See, okay, so then I'm gonna, like devil's advocate a little bit here. What about love? What about the romance? You see each other across the room, your eyes flutter, you fall in love. What are you're gonna start asking for credit scores?
Yeah,
absolutely.
You should. Yeah, there's a lot of
But how
conversation.
soon do you ask it, right?
Right.
That's
Well, you're not going to do that on the first date, right? So I think after a couple of months that you think, well, this is somebody I may want to have a relationship with, and if he feels the same way, then I think the conversation should start with, let's talk about values. Let's talk about what you want out of life, and it grows into more of the details of life.
So, okay, if everybody's watching this and you're wondering, why is FirstLight talking about this?
Yeah,
why this particular segment, right? It's all about financial wellness.
Yes.
And being able to have that dialogue openly with whomever about finances. So I know we have some 5 signs, and Paulette's got the first one. So Paulette, take it away.
So the first sign is, can you talk about money without fighting? Study shows that actually 30% of people find it difficult to talk about money with their partner. I think I am part of that percentage.
I'm there a little bit too, absolutely.
Yes, it's kind of uncomfortable, right? So how do you do this without fighting?
There's always negotiations, discussions, etc. How do we learn how to call our attention to certain things, whether it be money or something else, with our partner? So learning how to do that without creating conflict is a real art.
So is it about, are you fighting because lack of money? Are you fighting because there's a deeper cause in the relationship?
I think that we fight because we don't know how to communicate our needs and our boundaries in a calm way. Most of us are not raised in homes where we are taught that, right? It's either going to be a passive-aggressive style or it's going to be very aggressive style, right? So it's learning how to calmly and say and believing I deserve what I want, and I can put that on the table for discussion.
So okay, so let's look at divorce, right? So there's different causes of divorce, but when it comes to divorce, right up there is finances. And the first thing that happens in a divorce is splitting up those finances, and that's where all these heated arguments begin. So my question is, to avoid all that, when you're, how do you approach a conversation about money to your loved one?
If you wait until, guess what? I went and bought a new car, and it's like, what? You didn't even tell me. That's a huge purchase, and to not even consult it with your significant other, that's something really big, especially if your finances are together. Now, if you talk about certain things beforehand, specifically when it comes like, anything under 200, it's okay. We can spend it on whatever we want. anything that is above 200, then let's sit down and have a talk about it. Because I feel it converts into a fight once you already did it, and it's like you say in Spanish, es mejor pedir perdón a pedir permiso.
Right.
So, but once you're in that situation, then it's like, well, why didn't you tell me? Like, maybe I wouldn't have said no, but you didn't tell me. You didn't communicate with me that before. So I feel it's important since the beginning so that you don't get to the fighting portion of it.
So, and clarifying, like, what do you want out of life?
Right.
So, like, for example, when I got engaged with my husband 35 years ago, he wanted to go buy a ring. And we were shopping for very expensive diamonds. And I'm looking at him going, okay, well, how much money do you have in your bank account? And so we were already engaged. We were getting married in a couple of months, and I had not had that conversation. But when I said, how much money do you have in the bank account? And he tells me, I'm like, oh, no, I'd rather have real estate. Right, so then it starts. You start to clarify what's important. What's important to you. What's important for him. It was to make me happy, and he thought a diamond was going to make me happy. Right, so that wasn't what I wanted. We got a nice house. So up front, it's clarifying where are you going in life. What do you aspire to have and to do? How are we going to? Are we going to have children? How are we going to raise the children? How are we going to spend money? For example, one of the things that we had heated discussions is I was raised in private schools. I mean, my parents didn't have anything, but they made sure we went to private schools. My husband did not have that value. So I had to convince him. I had to win him over with research, with data, to be able to have the expenditure of a private school.
We live on the border. Is there a cultural difference? Is there a cultural influence when it comes to finances, and especially speaking to your loved one about finances? I'm not sure. I'm just wondering, is there a cultural influence to this?
I don't know that it's cultural. Maybe there is. I just, having been married more than once, I think about the dynamics were all the same, right? My first husband was a Mexicano, but he loved to spend. And then back in those days, he had his own credit, and I had no credit. And he overspent to where he had to file bankruptcy, right? And so there was no discussion with me about that. Second one was we were more compatible, and with this one, he's very savvy in the financial markets, et cetera. So we're definitely compatible. He just likes to spend money on things that I don't necessarily want to approve.
Well, that leads us to our second sign. So the second sign, you're financially compatible, is you don't lie about purchases or the cost of the purchase.
Oh yeah.
So it goes back to the discussion component, right? But if you're lying to somebody about what you're buying, what does that say about the relationship?
Exactly.
What else are you lying
What
about?
else are they going to lie about,
If
right?
you're lying about something, you're lying about other things.
You know what it reminds me of? Did you all see the movie Crazy Rich Asians? One of the characters, she goes out and she buys all this expensive jewelry. She's got Tiffany boxes, and she hides them from her husband. And she's shoving all the boxes in the cabinets and the drawers, and the husband even makes a joke, and he's like, "Yeah, I found a pair of Jimmy Choo's just stuffed behind the washing machine or something."
Oh, wow.
So because she was hiding all the boxes, but so it reminds me, if you're hiding these purchases, what does that say about your relationship?
I think you're in trouble. Yeah, because if you're lying about money and purchases, etc., what else are you lying about?
Right.
Right. So I think again, going back to clarifying values. I like what you said earlier. Yeah, have a spending limit that you both agree to that would be okay to spend.
What about so you don't lie about the purchase, but you lie about the cost of the purchase.
I don't think you should lie about either or.
Yeah.
Because at any point, you don't
It's
know
still a
what's
lie.
going to...
Yeah.
Well, it's still a lie, yes.
And you don't know
what
what's
if
going
it's
to
a
happen in
small
the
white
long
lie?
run. Still.
Okay, so let's help our viewer. Okay, so say there's somebody out there, and maybe they do tell that little fib. They don't say exactly how much they're spending for a particular purchase. How do we help them? What do we want to say to them?
One of the main things that I feel is usually like the root problem is you don't have that financial education. You don't have that financial background. So a lot of the times you're kind of scared and you're like, oh, I don't want to tell my husband because, I don't know what's going to happen and this and that. But that's why it's always important to seek out that help. So for example, with us, we do offer workshops, and it could be something as small as saying, I need help. I don't know the difference between the savings and the checking account because there's a lot of people that don't, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just they didn't get that financial education. So it can be as easy as starting to know, okay, what account is used for what. Then from there, getting into budgeting. How can I budget my money better?
And conversations about budgeting, people don't have them.
Yes.
Well,
What is your budget?
Most people don't know what they're spending their money on.
Right, yes.
Right, so just starting to be aware of where's all our money going.
Absolutely.
And then we can make some decisions based on how much money is coming in and how much money is going out and on what. Is that reflective of what we want to have in our lives?
Really, and here at FirstLight, and you're always going to hear this, it's the needs versus the wants.
Yes. What do you need? What do you want?
It's kind of our holy grail here, right?
That's the thing, right? If you sit down and if you do a budget, as a woman, you might have different needs and wants, right? Compared to as your partner, or even if you're a same-sex couple, it's still, you might have something different. Or in my case, I spend money in maybe not so much money on clothes, but I will invest it in doing my hair or my nails.
Which looks great, by the way.
Will my partner understand that might be
not necessarily
not necessarily a need, but like how can you have that communication? Like, okay, I understand that you do spend some money on that, but maybe let's make a budget. So how do you? ¿Cómo se ponen de acuerdo? How
Yes.
do you? I think
That's very interesting because my husband and I just reviewed our January through June expenses, right? And so I said, this is how much monthly we're spending on groceries and going out, my manicures, my hair. He's going for.
Did he call you out on something?
No. It's our regular kind of conversation, right? We take a pulse check. Look where all the money's going. I mean, it's taken me many years to get him to be able to use a card for almost everything because that way you have a record.
Yes.
You can track where the money's going. Because
Yes.
he was the kind of guy that let's just go get cash from the bank, and I go, where is that cash going? I don't know. I'm buying gas, groceries, whatever. I'm like, well, but we don't know. We need to have a record. So I think that's the
Yes.
first step is everybody needs to figure out where exactly is the money going.
It's interesting that you talk about spending habits because the third sign is what, Paulette?
Yes, the third one I think that's very important because it's all about trust. So do you trust your partner's spending habits, right? And I think that the more you trust him, then the less controlling you could be. So how do you know, right? Do I trust my partner on what he's spending?
Well, again, so avoiding the problems is to find out who are you getting married to, right? Or
developing a relationship,
with,
yes.
right? So are we on the same page? Because if I had, I was so young when I got married the first time. If I had known what kind of guy this was, I would have run into the quickest exit door because he really liked a lot of spending. And I don't know that he's changed or not. I'm not sure, but it causes a lot of mistrust, and then there's no discussion around that. So if you are in a relationship, I believe, where there are some trouble signs, get yourselves to a therapist. Go to an institution like yours that has budget opportunity, tools that you can use.
Well, let's take a pulse, right?
Okay.
So how many of us here have joint accounts with our significant others, loved ones?
Yep.
I know Paulette, yes.
She's single now.
Yeah, she's single. She's single and
Was it
available.
joint before?
Yes.
Before, no,
No?
we
Had a
kept
separate,
it separate.
So, in conversation with...
Now, is it just a joint account you have, or do you have an individual and then a joint account?
Sorry, yeah, because you can have multiple.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly,
you can
yeah.
have- So like I personally, we have joint and individual, but I still have access to the individuals. So that's
And
quite
I'm like,
common.
I'm like, why have an individual then if you have access to the same account, right?
You know what? I don't know. We just want to spread the money around. Who knows? For me personally,
Do you have the same thing, joint and
Yes,
yeah?
but it's because we've had our separate ones from before. So it's kind of like...
I know. Yeah, go.
Yes,
I think I know what you're gonna ask.
Joint.
But having because now that I'm hearing you, like having separate accounts, can that still work, or is there like a way that you suggest, like you should, if you have joint accounts, maybe you have a stronger economy rather than having them separate? I think that's very cool.
I think it's what works per couple.
Yeah, I've heard so many different arrangements
Yeah.
over the years that I'm like, I've never thought of that, but I'm like, that wouldn't work for us, right? And I think that's what's important. I have a history of mistrust from the previous relationships I've had. And so I said to my husband, I have had these experiences, and so consequently, I need to know where all the money's going because I've gotten, screwed. So I don't want that to happen again.
When we were talking about this story and, talking about this with the crew that's here, with people back at FirstLight and with family and friends, and they say, my money is my money,
and your
and
money
her
is
money is her
my
money,
money.
or vice versa.
No. My money is
yeah.
my money. Your money is my money.
too. There you go. That's what I said.
I mean, but and these folks are, very well respected, and I think of them as very smart and intelligent. And when they turn around and tell me, no, my money is my money, her money is her money, it makes me raise my eyebrows.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But a lot of them have good financial arrangements. I know, with one of the people that we talked to, one of the things she mentioned is he gets paid more, so he gets the bigger expenses. The house, the
Right.
cars, things like that. Since she gets paid less than he does, then she does the smaller expenses, the house bills, things like that. And that works for them. But that's why it's important to have that conversation. And
Right.
even though it's an uncomfortable conversation, I think there's little things that you can sometimes do to figure out certain stuff.
so let's talk about, let's try some specifics. How FirstLight can actually help our viewers. Say there is a couple, they're having a conversation, they're talking about money, and maybe it's just not quite working. Maybe they don't understand budgeting. Maybe they don't have this concept of saving because they're not saving. What are some tips that we can share?
So see, with us, one of the things that we do is we try to work with everyone. A lot of the times you need that outside perspective from someone else and to go down your finances with you. Whether it be, like I mentioned, budgeting, whether you're gonna purchase your first vehicle together or your first house together, we help you every step of the way on, okay, we wanna buy a house in, let's say, for example, 2 years. What do we need to do now?
Do you all provide some
to save?
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you provide help for couples that need help getting ready to buy a home and their credit isn't quite
Yes.
ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
So that's one
great.
of the things that we do, because, and that's why I always say, even if you don't want to, or you don't want to get a house right now, but you want to do it in the future, it's good to meet up with us and see, okay, where do we need to be? Because at that point, it's better to start now. Specifically, like you said, if their credit's not there, okay, what can we do to get your credit score there? How can we help you? Then once you're ready for that house, then guess what? It's, your loan will get approved because you're already there, rather than having to
The
start.
important thing is that credit can be repaired, right?
Yes, yes.
But it takes time.
And actually, that leads us to our next sign.
What number are we on?
Where I'm for, on the fourth sign. On the fourth sign.
Like what?
So the fourth sign is that different credit scores aren't necessarily a cause for concern, right? So like, here's the factoid. You and your partners should know each other's credit scores. If your scores are similar, this is a great sign that you've both been responsible with how you borrow, and will continue this pattern as a couple. What are your thoughts? From our financial expert, what are your thoughts?
People make mistakes.
I'm so glad you say that. It's okay. If you make mistakes, it's okay. It's okay.
Not if you keep repeating them.
Yes, not if you keep repeating them.
That's what we want to avoid, the repeating. But a lot of the time what happens, and I go back to having that financial literacy, having that financial education. A lot of the times you keep on repeating it because you're like, oh, you know what I mean? It's different when someone keeps on repeating an action because they're not aware of exactly what they're doing than someone doing it and willingly knowing what it is that they are doing. But a lot of the times people get into that hole and they don't know how to get out of it. So that's why to them it's like, okay, let me get another credit card. Let me get another title loan. Let me get another payday loan, because they don't know how to get out of that hole that they're already in. And that's why it's important to get the help, even if you think, you know what, my credit's never gonna, get there. It's better to go and find out, because
Absolutely.
maybe we could help you little by little. We have secured credit cards, we have secured loans that maybe you don't have everything you need at that point, but we can start helping you
build up
little
to
by
it.
little. Yes.
So from a motivational perspective, so if you have different credit scores, what does that mean? What does that say?
I think you go back to, let's talk about how you got this low score and what kinds of things did you do? What got you into this mess? And because what I've seen over the years, not in hearing from people that they come coaching to get coaching from me for different areas of their life, but sometimes these issues do come up, is that they keep repeating the same mistake. And one of the things that I see is that people like to have a lot of credit cards. They charge them up to the max, and then they can't pay them off, right? Then they go secure a loan to pay off the credit cards, right? So they can have one payment.
Yes.
And guess what? They do it all over again. So there are some psychological issues there when you keep repeating, whether it's a financial situation or even at work related issues. If you keep repeating the same mistake over and over again, and then you have coaching or you have help from like First Financial, you need to get some therapy to figure out, why do I keep repeating these kinds of mistakes?
You know, we love having these conversations, but without at least offering some sort of tip or suggestion. And Paulette and I had the opportunity to interview our CEO. And we asked him, hey, we said, what's the number one tip that you can give us all when it comes to savings and finances? ¿Y qué dijo? Do you remember?
Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself,
Pay yourself first.
Some very wise words, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
You know, when that paycheck comes around, you know, take out a particular percentage out of it and
Save
pay
it.
yourself first.
My great-grandmother was a real advocate of that. She came from Chihuahua. She was a housekeeper, so she didn't make a lot of money. But she would take her money, and los bancos, no. She had so much money in the bank, but then she had to have some under her mattress.
Of course,
yeah,
yes.
because that, you know, you have to be safe with the banks, right? That was her thinking. But she always had.
But not with our credit
Not
unions.
with you. Not now.
Let's just make that disclosure right now.
That was many years ago. Many years ago. But she, you know, she always had money under her mattress, right? So it's like, "Abuela, tiene dinero, ¿para qué?" So it would. She always was the kind of the person that you would go to, right? But she always said you have to save the money. In fact, she opened up my first savings account. I was growing in Isleta, in the hood, but I went to a bank and she opened me up a savings account. And so I started working at a very young age. I started working at 12. So when I got married, I had the money for the wedding.
See, there you go.
That was my first flag.
You know, I want to bring up another tip, and I want if MDJ can talk about this, the 52-week challenge. I just love it.
Oh, what is that?
So it's actually pretty cool, and you can start whenever. It's 52 weeks because there's 52 weeks in a year. Right. But basically, I've used it for trips or things like that. So every week you do the amount of that week. So week 1 you save $1. Week 2, $2. Week 3, $3. And you go all the way till week 52, which is $52. And you end up with, I believe it's like 1,400 and something.
Yeah, just under 1,400 or over 1,400.
You don't even feel it, right?
And you don't even feel it. Yeah, because if you really think about
it.
it, it's like, okay, how much do I spend per week on Starbucks? Like, that's just like, it's like $30 per week.
No
and I'm
more
like,
Starbucks,
no Starbucks, put that money in there, and there you go. And the most that you'll do in 1 week is only $52. You know, a lot of people, it's like $52, it's a lot. But when you think about it, it's like, have you bought any shoes recently? How much gas have you put? You know, things like that. So it's not that much in reality.
You know, and that's a good practice to have. But at my age, what I'm looking at, I'm retirement age, are people talking about when they want to retire?
Yeah.
Well, retirement and savings goes into our very last sign.
So the fifth sign is that couples have similar spending priorities. For example, retirement, savings, and some of the facts is that when you're a couple, your spending will affect your partner. So my question to you is, how do you get to a point where you have those similarities? What if you don't have them? How do you? I think you can negotiate them.
Say bye.
Bye.
Because we're talking about these scenarios where like everything is perfect, but sometimes it might not be perfect with your couple.
Life is not perfect.
Can you work it out? What if I'm already thinking about retirement and my partner is not thinking? How can we negotiate that? How can we communicate? And that brings us back to the first sign, which is talking about money without fighting.
I think that we all need to understand that whatever the issues are, whether it be financial, how we deal with our children, how we deal with the in-laws, we need to have a process of how do we communicate when we are not in agreement with one another.
If we want to start thinking, let's say, about retirement, about savings, then what could we do? Like FirstLight, how can...
Yeah, the FirstLight has
help?
programs, right?
Yes, we have our member financial service reps that can actually, guide you through every single step. If you want to retire, if you want to have a retirement in which it's, like Aliana was saying, what type of life do you want? Because that's going to depend a lot on how much you need to start saving since now. And, I've met with our member financial services, and it's pretty cool because they go detail by detail, and it's like, you need to be putting away this much if you want to be making that much. And I'm like, oh man, no more Starbucks, no more lunch, no more nothing.
So you're looking at a sacrifice, but really
Yes.
you need to focus on the reward, right?
Exactly.
Because how we create change in behavior, whether it's finances or whatever, is what's the reward? You have to focus on the vision, because otherwise then it's very tempting to just forget about this and just just deal
Am
with
I the
this.
only romantic at the table? I mean, seriously, guys.
also very romantic.
What about living in the moment? And you guys are out, and I'm just gonna buy this. You want a bottle of champagne? Sure. We're having a blast. You want some flowers?
Sometimes I was like that, Sid, and I was like, what if I die tomorrow? And then here I am 10 years later, still alive.
No,
So yeah.
I think it's okay to like splurge on your food. And like my daughter's here visiting from out of town, so we're splurging on food right now. But then you get back on track, right? As long as it's not a huge splurge like a car. So you have to work out these details.
So I do have one last question for everybody at the table.
What
But
kind of questions?
Yes,
He
yes.
I know,
always comes
Sid.
out
From the
This is
romantic.
question.
from the romantic, l'amor, all about the love. No, okay. So let's go around the table. Do you have to be financially compatible to make your relationship work? MDJ?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because if not, it's not going to work.
Okay, as the bugs are flying around me.
I think that if you might not be compatible, but you could work it out. You could go to therapy, you could go to a financial institution, and then see like, okay, like that's it doesn't need to be perfect at the beginning, right? But that's just the way how I am.
The answer is definitely hell yes.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm like, hell yeah. We gotta be financial. Give me your credit score right now.
It's not just that, it's indicative of values of what's
Yes.
important. It's indicative of being able to resolve conflict, right?
Yes.
It's indicative of, I think, in many things that come up in life they're very important. So I do believe that you need to be financially compatible.
And if you're not financially compatible,
Get some help.
there's some help.
Yes, get help.
FirstLight can
Definitely.
help you. If you could share one last tip with us, what would you share? What would you emphasize? There's so many tips out there. I love the fact that, pay yourself first. But what would you...
I think is figure out what works best for both of you. Because it might be a joint account, it might not. It depends on what your necessities, we go back into what the need that you have is. So sit down and talk about it, but it's very important to talk about it. So no matter what, even if it's very uncomfortable, it's better for you to talk about it before.
If people want more information, MDJ,
Yes.
where can they get it?
They can go on to our website at firstlightfcu.org, and we actually at the very bottom it'll have community events, and it'll actually have workshops that we work with.
Yes.
And they can go ahead and actually go to any of our branches and talk to a rep, and the representatives will definitely help them out as well.
And the workshops are free.
Yes, workshops are free, and you do not have to be a member.
Yeah, you don't have to be a member. FirstLight is really about helping the community and financial wellness. So, thank you for that information.
Yes.
Aliana, if people want more information, where can they get
They
it?
can find me at positivedirectionsco.com, and my number is 915-838-1000. But the last tip that you were asking about was I like the idea of being spontaneous, right? I like being in the moment.
The bottle of champagne,
The bottle of
flowers and candy.
Yeah. But
Some Paulette and I.
Mariachi ceremony.
mariachis. And I think it's important also to plan for the future.
That's great.
One more time, how can they get a hold of you?
915-838-1000 or positivedirectionsco.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
both for being on the show.
This has been
you.
fun.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. And that is our show. If you have any questions or comments of the program, you can reach us. Our email, is getlitwithfirstlight@firstlightfcu.org. I'll repeat it. getlitwithfirstlight@firstlightfcu.org. We'd love to hear from you.
And you can listen to this podcast on any platform that you like to use to listen to your podcast, such as Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. So just find us as Get Lit with FirstLight.
You can also follow us on social media. Our handle is FirstLightFCU.
Hasta la próxima.
Thank you. I'm Sidney Alvarez. We'll see you next time.
Bye.